Joining me here right in studio, who I had the pleasure to work with for many years at ESPN when I was doing ESPN radio coverage of Major League Baseball, the 20-year voice of ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, and now in his 20th season calling games on the radio for the Giants after many, many years doing so for the Orioles. Jon Miller, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Great.
Good to see you here in person on the show. So I guess let's start right away. What has happened to the team that led the National League at the All-Star break, now they're in the three-way tie for the wild card?
I don't think there's ever been anything quite like it in the history of Major League Baseball. The real ironic part of it is that not only did the Giants have the best record in the game, but some of their key players were injured. At one time, the second baseman, the right fielder, and the third baseman were all gone at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so they had guys from the minor leagues, career minor leaguers. They had Ramiro Pena, Grant Green, Connor Gillespie. These guys all of a sudden became regulars. They had a couple of rookies platooning in the outfield, Jared Parker and Mac Williamson. And they all actually did really well. They must have done well because they had a stretch. They were 40 and 15. Mm-hmm. But now Pence got back, Panic got back, and Duffy, before he got back, got traded. They got Matt Moore, the right-hander, for Matt Duffy. So, and they traded for Eduardo Nunez, who right now is one of their best players.
Yeah, he's definitely provided some energy. There's no question about that. And he had the one lone manufactured run for Bumgarner until the bullpen blew it again. I mean, the back end is really, the Casillas disintegration is the only way to put it. I don't want to put it on just one person here, but that has truly crushed this team in the second half of the season.
The bullpen's been a problem all season long, but the irony was when those guys all got back, they went into slumps. Pence immediately went into a terrible slump, and so did Joe Panic. And the guys who had replaced them were actually doing a lot better job of hitting, especially, than the regulars when they got back. So, which happens sometimes. A guy misses 2 months or 6 weeks or whatever. The bullpen has been a problem in and out all season long. That's been a problem. But I've never really seen anything like what has happened recently. Before last night, the previous 9 games where they led in the ninth inning, which 9 games, you should be 9-0, maybe 8-1 if something went wrong.
Right.
They were 4-5. They lost 5 games of the last 9 that they were ahead in the ninth inning. Now, that was not something that was happening all season. The rest of the season before that, when they had a lead going into the ninth inning, they were 86-5. So
that's remarkable, John.
That's still not a great record as Major League Baseball goes.
But it's a difference between being maybe 5 out behind the Dodgers with a couple weeks ago or right there in the hunt for the NL West.
Well, how about
right
this?
Now.
The Giants began play last night, 6 games back of the Dodgers in the West. The Dodgers had blown 3 games all season, which they led going to the ninth inning. The Giants have blown 9 games, which they led going to the ninth inning. That's a 6-game difference. The whole difference between the two teams is basically holding that ninth inning lead versus not holding it.
So what does Bruce Bochy do? I mean, how is he handling this odd twist of fate it's an even-numbered year. Don't the baseball gods know that this should be the Bochy Giants year?
Well,
John?
I keep thinking that this may be just part of the script, because 2 years ago, this time of year, with just 10, 12 days left, 2014, there was no chance that the Giants were going to win this World Series. There was no chance that they were going to do anything in the postseason. They had one reliable starting pitcher, Bumgarner, and they had no left fielder. Remember, the left fielder ended up being their 3rd or 4th string first baseman, who basically had never played left field in his career. He played a couple of days the final weekend and never got a tough chance. And they asked Bochy, Ishikawa, did you learn anything? Can he play left field? Close enough. Put him out there. And they ended up winning it all. So I think they feel, Posey and Bumgarner and the main guys in the team, Pence, that if they get there, they know how to win and that they'll wreak some havoc. But they have this last period of the season to try to figure out that late inning bullpen, which for no contending team is this time of year ever sort of holding auditions for the closer's job. But that's where the Giants are right now. If you have this problem the first month or two, you work it out and then you play the rest of the season and go with what you've discovered. The this is sort of uncharted territory. You have to be trying to do that now with just a few days left.
And if it doesn't work out in the April, May, and the auditions, maybe in July you can go trade for somebody. But now, there's no recourse in that regard. I've got Jon Miller sitting here on the Rich Eisen Show set. What happened with Bumgarner and Puig the other day? What happened there, John?
I think it had almost nothing to do with the moment, which was Bumgarner throwing out Puig at first and then being in close proximity to each other after he did it. But Puig immediately, after he ran past first base, he turned the wrong way. If you look at the video of that, he turned towards second base. You don't do that after you overrun first base. Every major leaguer knows you don't. Every minor leaguer knows you don't turn towards second base, because if you end up being called safe, then they just walk over and tag you out. But he could not wait to stop, spin around, and start glaring at Bumgarner. Yeah, what? And nobody had said anything at that point. And so I think it had everything to do with the past between these two guys. So, and that's what it's all about. They've had their run-ins, and they've had their glaring matches, and also I think they have a great deal of respect for each other. Because
you do.
The first time Bumgarner ever faced Puig, he was burying that hard cutter and fastball right in on the hands. And then he threw him his best changeup away. And Puig was right on it and hit a home run right down the right field line at Dodger Stadium. First time they'd ever seen each other. And Bumgarner was stunned. Nobody does that. He's never seen anybody do that. And he thought, wow, this guy is pretty good. So the rest of it is just the competitiveness, I think. But and Puig being Puig and Bumgarner, let's face it, there was almost a brawl in spring training. The Cubs and Giants were playing, and I think it was Dexter Fowler. He struck out, and then he starts talking to the runner at second base, as if Bumgarner's not even there. And then the guy starts asking him about the pitch, like he's upset with the guy at second. And Bumgarner thinks he means that the guy at second was tipping pitches to him. So now Bumgarner gets upset and starts screaming at it, and everybody's like, well, what's he screaming about? And that's all it was. It was a spring training game. It was Bumgarner versus Arrieta. The final score, by the way, was, I don't know, 16-14. Neither guy pitched that well.
Of course it was. I love it. That's Jon Miller here on the Rich Eisen Show, and you're saying that you haven't seen anything like what's happened to the Giants over the last few months, and you called the Jeffrey Mayer catch, if you will. And I want to talk about that and other things from your career. I'm going to take a break. We'll come back in 60 ticks the clock to do that. In the meantime, I want to tell my listeners and viewers that you have a chance to win a $250 gift card from Fanatics, our friends at Fanatics. You need to go to richeisenshow.com right now, though, and submit a picture that shows how you are your team's ultimate fan. So at the end of the week, we're all going to take a look at these pictures that are on richeisenshow.com. We will vote on whoever has displayed their most fanatical part of their fandom. And you get $250 gift card from Fanatics. It's the world's largest collection of official fan gear from all the leagues, teams, players you love. Officially licensed everything. Fanatics. Back with Jon Miller in just 1 minute's time here on The Rich Eisen Show. Welcome back to The Rich Eisen Show. One of the more delightful aspects of working at ESPN when I did, Jon Miller, is that I got to meet you and I got to pick your brain whenever I got to call baseball games. You were kind enough to speak to me on the phone when I was probably 2 years into my tenure at ESPN, asking you questions about calling games. And I've recounted this story before when you were called into the show earlier, but I asked you, what do I do if I'm in the middle of telling a story and the ball hits the bag, hits somebody in the top of their head, and it bounces? What do I do if I'm in the middle of telling a story? Do you remember the advice that you gave me about how I'm able to just stop what I'm telling and describing the action? Do you remember that piece of advice at all? It's okay if you did not.
I'm not specifically remembering it, but...
So let me help you then.
The ball gets hit, you have to describe it.
Well, you just said that it's like you're talking to your friends and the most beautiful woman in the world has walked in the room.
Oh...
No. You don't remember that?
That's what I said.
That's what you did.
That is
and you're like your friends, and your friends understand.
That is pretty
that you've stopped telling the story.
Pretty cool, yeah.
And then years later.
So act it out for me.
Okay. So here we go. I'm telling this story to Jon Miller, and he doesn't recall telling me this part of the story. And oh, wow, she's beautiful. And so at any rate,
what's the story?
That, by the way, that's exactly what years later, when my wife, who you know from back at ESPN days as well, and I were having dinner.
I always stopped telling stories whenever she would walk by.
Nice, John.
I've been wanting to admit that to you for years.
Well, I'm glad that we're now getting it out in the open. But my wife and I, we were having dinner.
She was a star.
She still is. We were having dinner with all people through mutual friends, Donald Trump. And he stopped telling a story in the middle of his story and saying, wow, she's beautiful. And I told him about how you, Jon Miller, gave me advice one day. And I'd never seen it acted out in real life in real person until he did it. And he just made his nod, sort of like his Donald Trump face, and then continued telling his story. You know. But I've never heard you say what you just said to me off camera, what your children have made you do. So why don't you say what are your kids made you do?
They just said, Dad, not that you're like a real old passe guy,
Yes.
but you'd be a little more current if you did Instagram. Because I always have taken a lot of photos.
Okay.
And then I text them to the kids and text them to my wife or whoever. And they said, so just put those pictures on the Instagram.
Okay.
So I don't know anything about it, but they showed me how to do it. They set it up for me.
Yes.
And I've been doing it. I really enjoy it, and it's and really the whole point is they give me the big thing is hashtags. It's not just the photo or the film; it's the hashtag that you put with it, and they give me little things to put, and it's a lot of fun.
Jon Miller's hashtagging right now.
Oh yeah.
So you want to take a picture?
Rich Eisen Show on fleek. Yeah. Hashtag. Sorry.
By the way, that's a drop. Somebody
on fleek.
dropped that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Rich Eisen's wife, Susie, on fleek. Yeah, I'm into that one. That's a good one. Yeah. Squad goals. Hashtag squad goals. That's good for you and your guys here, right?
But yes, this all works.
Yeah.
What is your Instagram handle, John?
Oh, it's the
Yes.
little at sign.
Yes.
Jon, Jon Miller, SF Giants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's a baseball thing.
Well, you could do real Jon Miller. You know, people do that because they want to either somebody's already, if you will, squatting on the real Jon Miller, just Jon Miller, or it makes it seem like you're more popular that there's fake accounts.
Oh.
So you might want to step, I'll leave it to your kids to tell you how to Instagram.
I'll have to have a consult with the fam and see what they say about this.
Squad goals.
But the funny thing was opening day in San Francisco, and Vin Scully is the best there ever was, and Vin always maintains his cool. You know, he's the James Bond of baseball broadcasters. No matter what happens, never breaks a sweat, never gets overly excited, and just handles it. Opening day in San Francisco, Hunter Pence hits a grand slam, and very exciting. The place is going nuts. But it's a tight, tense game, and I don't know what I was doing, but way back there, and whoa, like, it's gone, a grand slam for Buster Posey, good friend Hunter Pence. And
John, we actually have. Do you have that ready?
Yeah, let me pull it because we were gonna play it for you.
We actually have that.
Let me grab it.
Well, the point of what I'm talking about is because of this social media thing.
Yeah.
Hunter Pence immediately after that changes his little bio on his Instagram and Twitter and whatever else he's got, and it now reads, or at least it did at that time, I'm Buster Posey's good friend at Hunter Pence. And and he and Buster, they did little Instagrams with pictures of each other. Here I am with my good friend, Hunter Pence, and so on and so forth.
Oh, that's great.
So they had a lot of fun with it. And I became very famous in the worst possible way. When he screws up, he recovers beautifully. Yeah.
John,
best I've ever seen at a recovery after he screws up.
Hey, look, one of the most incredible calls I've ever heard was your call of Jeffrey Mir, because there's no way you're expecting in a big spot in a big playoff game in Yankee Stadium a young kid to reach over and Rich Garcia to botch the call, and you were on it the entire time. A fan grabs it, and Rich Garcia is calling it a home run. I mean, you were on it right away, John. I don't know how are you able to, as a broadcaster, to expect the unexpected?
Well, and this also is another mistake. 'Cause I've made a lot of mistakes, Rich, over the years, not just the Hunter Pence thing, because everybody was asking me that question that night and the next day, and when the ball got out near right field, Tony Tarasco is the right fielder. He squared up under it. Mm-hmm. And I checked the TV monitor, the network covering the game. They had a close-up of it. And I saw the kid reach out and intercept the ball. And Tarasco wasn't even, he was squared up waiting to catch it. And then I look at the umpire to see what he's calling, and he calls it a home run. So I had the kid grabbing it. I had the umpire making the call, and then immediately chastised him. Wow. Oh, my goodness, what a poor call by that umpire.
Well, you're broadcasting. You're seeing what you're calling what you see.
So they're all asking me, how did you see? You must have been 600 feet away. How did you see all of that in the moment? And so I looked at the TV monitor, which that should have been my secret. I realize now.
No. I mean, you're utilizing all of your tools that are sitting right there. And you mentioned Vin. His last broadcast is going to be in a booth next to yours up at AT&T Park in San Francisco. What is your relationship with Vin?
Well, having done the Giants game the last 20 years, one of the great benefits of that is that the Giants play the Dodgers so often. So we got to see Vinny 3 times a year down here and 3 times a year up in San Francisco. Used to sit with him, have dinner before a game. And for me, I'm always just picking his mind for stories because he's got all the great stories. He loves to laugh. So that's been a lot of fun because he grew up a Giants fan. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, by the way, I had one of the all-time great opportunities. I did a sit-down interview with Vinny for 35 minutes.
No kidding.
It's hard to get Vinny for 35 minutes right now.
Yes.
Because everybody in the world wants to get him. Mm-hmm. And it was for something the Giants are going to do, and some kind of a special they're going to produce on their regional sports network up there. And at the ballpark, things that they'll show of that. And I was trying to get him to say, what if it had been Horace Stoneham and Russ Hodges who'd called you instead of Red Barber in 1950, and you'd ended up broadcasting the Giants games than the Dodgers? Can you just give me a what if and give me a it's time for Giants baseball?
And what'd he say?
Well, even as I was starting into that, he says, oh, you mean it's time for Giants baseball. So he didn't do it the real one, but he did it. So.
But you do a crazy Vin Scully imitation, so you want to do it right now?
It's time for Giants baseball. Yeah. Brought to you by Farmer John, freshly dressed, Eastern-fed, pure pork sausage. Mm-mm. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Wow.
Years ago, before I was at ESPN, Vinny was doing the Game of the Week at NBC. He was in New York in a studio. I was in Seattle in a studio where the Orioles were playing. Mm-hmm. And a Sunday morning show on ESPN might have been you. I can't remember who the host was. But he's interviewing the two of us about the pennant races. And then out of the blue, he asked me if I'd do this Vin Scully impression. So I do a thing of Vinny in Japanese, and he's so famous now that even in Japan, the broadcasters try to sound like him. And I thought it was a little bit of a tribute, and I do Vinny in Japanese. And then Vinny starts speaking Japanese from the studio in New York, which I thought, now that's the best ever.
What does that sound like?
Watashi wa Korakuen Stadium ni orimasu. Hajime mashite dozu yoroshiku low ball 2. But now the host then says to Vin, he says, now, Vin, how do you feel about John doing this impression of you? And Vin basically says he knows there's a fine line between making fun and having fun.
Oh, sure.
But he takes it as all being in good fun, although he's much happier being the imitatee rather than the imitator. And then I do just what you're doing. And now 20 minutes later, I'm walking back to the hotel through downtown Seattle thinking, did I just get cut up into 1,000 pieces and didn't even know it? Wow. Now that is good.
That's good. Jon Miller here on the Rich Eisen Show. Would you mind sticking around one more segment, wrap up the show? Yeah. Thanks. Before we send you to Chavez Ravine for the finale.
Pull up a chair.
And stick around one more segment. Take an interview. Well, I've got a good idea for one last segment here. We'll have you take a selfie with me as Vin Scully on your Instagram account. Okay, so get ready for that. That's Jon Miller next here on the Rich Eisen Show. John's got 41,000 followers on Instagram.
Oh, I know. I saw.
By the way, this is just a 2-minute, 20-second long TV-only
crushing
segment.
it.
Okay.
Last week, the person in, like yesterday in your chair, Jeff Garland, the actor and comedian, did not know we were on the air live and said something very not safe for work, John. So I just want to make sure you understand.
Oh,
you're
for
on
crying
live.
out, Pete's sake, yeah. That could happen, yeah.
John, what's your favorite ballpark of all the ones that, because you've been in so many?
Well, as a broadcaster going to Fenway, there's nothing better than that because the game is so unusual at Fenway with the big wall and everything is right in front of you. The crowd is great. And when the Giants went there this year for interleague play, it was fabulous. The Giants had thousands of people had made the trip to go to Fenway. They wanted to see Fenway.
Sure.
And they started doing, let's go Giants. And the Red Sox fans, instead of just trying to boo them and throw things at them and whatnot, started doing competing, let's go Red Sox. And it was the most wild thing I've ever. I mean, I've done a lot of Yankee Red Sox games there on ESPN, Sunday night games. And I've never seen that electricity in that ballpark because of, let's go Giants, let's go Red Sox, let's go, you know. And it was loud and it went through a whole inning like that. So,
Well, I remember when I was doing ESPN radio studio shows, and then for the World Series, I got to go on the road. There was a lot of World Series games in that old Yankee Stadium that was, I'll never forget it. But look, I grew up a Yankee fan from Staten Island, so it was particularly special to me.
They
in
were
that
the
building.
best fans to me in that era because, and after September 11th, we were there almost a whole month.
Yes.
And they just started things like Jorge Posada would come up, and a whole section would go, hip, hip, and then they'd all jump up, Jorge! and by the fourth at bat, the whole stadium did it. It was just phenomenal. And
Yeah, you called Jeter's home run as Mr. November?
yeah,
That home run
yeah.
in that World Series?
Yeah, he went in this tight, tense game, a huge game. He goes to Torrey. It's just past midnight into November. He says, Mr. Torrey, are you still going to manage? And he says, what do you mean? It's the 10th inning. And he says, well, your contract is expired.
I never heard that story.
I kind of thought maybe you just walk out of here and into the clubhouse and take your pinstripes off.
Then he hit a home run. Fantastic.
You're listening to The Rich Eisen Show.
There's a high drive deep into left center field. It's on its way. Adios! Pelota! A grand slam for Buster Posey's good friend, Hunter Pence. 12-6 Giants. They have broken it open.
What a save,
here.
John.
Oh, man.
And
What a
Pence
save.
gets his first 4 RBIs all at the same time.
I mean, that's a fantastic save.
I did get on my Instagram, Marty Brenneman put a note and
Yes.
said, that is the greatest save in broadcast history. You're my idol. And then I thought, great. So now that's what I'm known for.
I want to thank Matt Ryan, Mark Wahlberg, James Lofton, and Jon Miller here in studio on The Rich Eisen Show. Ed O'Neill of Modern Family will be on tomorrow's show here, along with Eric Davis. Do you want to take a selfie for your Instagram account? Do me a favor. Call the selfie that you're about to do as if you're Vin Scully while we're doing the selfie here.
Oh, do it as a video.
Well, no, you don't have to do it as a video, but just call it yourself if you want. Like describe what you're doing as Vin Scully taking the Instagram account photograph.
Here I am, ladies and gentlemen. Pull up a chair as I do something that I have no idea how to do, and it should be marvelous. I'm doubtful it'll be on fleek, but I'm with Rich Eisen, who is, for my money, GOAT.
Wow.
Hashtag goat. Hashtag
Oh,
goat. Or you can use the
hashtag
emoji.
goat, yeah.
You can use the emoji goat.
Oh, there's a goat?
Yes.
Oh, this is good, yeah.
John, you are the best. You are the best. Enjoy the rest of the season. I hope you get to call playoff games.
So I'm trying to build up my ratings on the Instagram. You know, it looks like I lost 100. I went from 41 since I've been on this show. I was at 41,000 when I walked in, and now it's 40.9.
Now no. There is absolutely no chance of that. Don't worry.
All right.
That's just it's a blip. You're on
Broadcasting, your ratings. You know, you're looking.
Wow.
I look at it as a rating.
You're on fleek.
Oh,
Do you want to do the quick poll question results?
Yeah, real quick, John. What's your favorite Bill Murray movie? He's 66 years old today. Kingpin, Stripes, Groundhog Day, Ghostbusters, Caddyshack.
well, Stripes was fabulous, and Groundhog Day fabulous. If they're on, if I'm flipping through and late at night in a hotel,
Mic drop of the remote drop, right?
I
love it.
I'm on.
So which one would you choose?
Well, I think Groundhog Day it's so funny, and every time I see it, it's funny, and it's so clever. I just think that's one of the greats.
John, thanks for coming on. Have a great broadcast tonight and beyond. Please come back next time you're in Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
Jon Miller here on The Rich Eisen Show. Again, Eric Davis, Ed O'Neill, and you tomorrow. See you then.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.